Hello and welcome to the December 10th edition of the Index Sports Show. I'm Assistant Sports Editor Brent Foster here with Sports Editor Jack Nicholl and Editor-in-Chief Blake Toppmeyer. Nice to see you guys today.
Thanks, Brent.
Today we're going to be talking about new football coach Gregg Nesbitt. He was introduced by Director of Athletics Jerry Wolmering yesterday at a press conference. Guys, first of all, I just want to get your initial thoughts on the Nesbitt hiring. What's your thoughts?
Well, I like Nesbitt already. What I like about him a lot is that he recognizes the challenge that he has ahead. In the press conference, when I interviewed him, in the press release, every single time he has recognized that it's going to take a lot of work to turn the Bulldogs around, who were 2-9 last season.
I haven't interviewed him yet, like I know you guys both have, but I was at the press conference, and my initial impressions were very impressed. A guy that's coached in the state of Missouri for more than 20 years, and I think that's pretty important. Largely, the Bulldogs recruits have come from out of state. The last couple of years, I know Shannon Currier was able to develop some recruits out of Texas. But it'd be nice to have that advantage with Nesbitt coming from Missouri, because Truman football only gets so much scholarship money, so it saves them money if they can pull in those in-state students rather than going out of state for recruiting. So I think that might be the biggest advantage to it.
And with that being said, do you think he's the right man for the job?
Well, Nesbitt makes a lot of sense. Like Blake said, he's had 20 years of coaching in Missouri. He's had success at Hickman High School in Columbia, won a state championship in 2004. And as far as the best candidate for the job, as far as we know, he was the only person who had an on-campus interview. He was really the only finalist, we'll say, for the job. So he makes a lot of sense. We don't really know who the other candidates were. One thing about Nesbitt that he's lacking right now is he's never been a coach at a university. So he's still got something to prove there.
Yeah, I mean, from everything I've seen, I think he'll be a good head coach. I don't think we can be certain whether he was the best head coach for the job. Jerry Wolmering did not release some of the other top candidates that he looked at. And I found it kind of surprising that Coach Nesbitt was the only coach out of more than 100 applicants who got an interview. That really surprised me. I don't know if that just means that the other 100 applicants were no good. Is the state of Truman football that bad that they can only get one qualified candidate? I don't know. It really surprised me that they only interviewed one candidate, but maybe he was just overwhelmingly the man that Jerry Wolmering wanted, and as I said, I think he is a good choice, but I would have liked to maybe heard some of the other top candidates. I think that's the only way we can know whether he truly was the best choice.
Do you think Wolmering's maybe hiding something? Maybe he just doesn't think the other candidates were good enough to let go? Or
I don't know. I believe he told you that Nesbitt was the only MIAA candidate, so maybe that's what he wanted. I know Jerry was really thrilled, as I mentioned, that Nesbitt has so many in-state connections. So I believe he probably was just overwhelmed and really pleased with the candidate that he got. I'd probably just feel a little more comfortable if there were a few more interviews done.
And another thing with Nesbitt is he's already established himself in Kirksville. Before the press conference yesterday, I walked up to say hello to him, and there was Hank Jensen, the radio announcer, just catching up with him, and I barely got a chance to shake his hand before going to the press conference because he and Hank were just catching up on old times.
So team goes on here, new coach. Where do you think the team goes from here?
Well, like I said, 2-9 last season, 4-7 a year ago, and then followed by 2 6-5s before that. But they're really in a rebuilding process right now. They're losing their best offensive player in Vanessa Magpie, arguably their best defensive player in Eric Sternberg, and it's really a rebuilding process. And that's going to take a couple of years. I don't expect them to suddenly turn around and have a winning record next season. But anytime you bring in a new football coach, I'm not going to expect results next year, but 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road, that's when Nesbitt can make his mark on the program.
Yeah, I agree with Jack. It's going to be tough to say where the program goes from here until we see what kind of system he's able to put in place, what kind of recruits he's able to bring in. I will say that it is nice when you're able to pull in a defensive coordinator from Central Missouri because he's been around winning programs, so he knows what it's like to win. Although he wasn't the head coach there, the defense at Central has always been pretty good, one of the better defenses in the conference. So he's had success in the MIAA. We'll just see if he's able to bring the recruits in that Truman needs to compete.
And the other big thing with hiring new coaches, assistant coaches, Wolmering said that the there's a financial situation they can't afford to pay 2 staffs. What do you think should happen with the assistant coaches?
And Wolmering also said they have room for one more assistant.
Yes.
So with room for one more assistant, I think they really need to utilize that. You bring in one new coach, and that's not really too much of an overhaul, even though it is the head coach. It's a new face on the program. But I'd like to see another assistant coach, probably not only an assistant coach, but a main assistant coach, somebody who's going to play a big role. And that way, if you're going to overhaul a program, you can't just do it with one person. 2 coaches, as long as they have the money to do it, they need to utilize that money.
Yeah, the university's kind of painted itself into a corner on this one with the way they do their coaching contracts, not renewing them until July 1st. And I believe Wolmering told you this week that's beginning to change with Nesbitt's contract. It's now going to follow the course of the season, which makes more sense. And I'm sure there was a point in time where having all the contracts renewed on July 1st was the way to do it. But now Truman's in a situation where they have all these assistant coaches that were on Aaron Blecko's staff who are going to be paid through June 30th, so it is going to make it difficult to bring in an entire new staff. I think maybe the best thing to do, like Jack said, bring in a top-notch assistant coach. Maybe that's someone who can fill the offensive coordinator position. Nesbitt said at a press conference on Monday that he's probably more of a defensive coach, so probably a good offensive coordinator would be a smart fit.
Jack, Blake, thanks for joining us. The Index Sports Show will be off for winter break. We will return in January.